old do you think Liberty Way is?
That's a good question.
Probably like 3 years, 4 years.
I'm going to say Liberty Way is 5 years old.
It's more than that.
Seems like just yesterday that they opened that up.
10 years. 10 years. No way.
About 10 years.
Very
I've been a
good.
member of the chamber for a while, so I got it.
A decade.
I can't believe it's been 10 years.
Seriously? Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I had no clue.
Well, as a resident, it gives you kind of that sense of identity for our area.
I think it's great for Liberty Township. I think it's great for Westchester Township.
It's important because it brought some things to Liberty that just weren't there.
So do you remember Liberty Way going in?
I do, yes. There's a lot of changes that have happened over the years.
The main reason Liberty Way was so important to the township was simply because the residential growth was setting records. Our population had doubled, and we were only half built out. Without infrastructure improvements to focus on residents and businesses, we wouldn't be where we are today.
There was some concepts, some kicking around in 2000, 2001. It started really getting legs 2001, 2002. That we needed a ramp. We needed an exit ramp in here and for the economic development of this area. Because 129 didn't serve Hamilton Mason Road at the time. So there was real push to develop that commercial base in here, and they knew they needed a ramp and interchange to make that happen.
We're 83% residential, and we only have 17% of our township carved out for commercial. So we needed an area that would be sustainable and accessible so that it would last for many years and decades to support the residents of Liberty Township so they don't have to pay for all the services themselves. And Liberty Way gave us that tool to get us there.
Early on, I had some brief conversations with the people at OKI, realizing that they were trying to kind of delay a few things. A vote was going to be taken in November that year at the meeting. I'm sitting there. Few seats to my right is Commissioner Fox. Few seats to my left is Councilman Cranley. They were both very passionate in their presentations. Commissioner Fox, he wanted to make sure that Butler County became more sustainable and that we had some economic development out here. Councilman Cranley at the time, was passionate about keeping the funding in the core of the city. Right before the call to question, I was the last person to be able to speak. And I just spoke from my heart, basically saying we were not asking for any funding, that we were doing this on our own. We had 100% local funding, and that it was taking money out of our pockets in our community to take a look to see if this interchange was actually going to be able to be feasible and a reality. Well, when the vote was taken, it was overwhelmingly approved that Liberty Way interchange would go on the OKI long-range plan. And without that vote of approval, we would not have been able to do the Liberty Way interchange project. We needed a lot of partners.
The state was very involved. Butler County, you know, what Commissioner Dixon and his team did. Liberty Township and obviously Westchester Township was very involved.
We had to work with the Federal Highway Administration, Ohio Department of Transportation. We had OKI, the Butler County Engineers Office, Butler County TID. All of those were great partners. And then we had stakeholders, the people who owned the property, the people who had businesses in the area.
Landowners, homeowners, business owners. So we had a very good mix of people trying to decide exactly what they wanted to see out of Liberty in the future. And that is our guide today.
In order to get the project done at a faster pace, it had to be locally funded. If you wait for federal and state dollars, you're waiting an extra 5 to 10 years in some cases. So we felt that it was important because of looking at the market at the time, we needed to get on board and get something done quickly. And so we had the right partners and we had the right background so that we could go ahead and move forward with it.
That we're probably unique in building a number of new interchanges of any other county in the state. And that's because the people recognize this. They're forward-thinking. Our community leaders are forward-thinking. They recognize how that all works, and it really plays well.
From the Westchester's perspective, it was vitally important that the Liberty interchange get built, and more importantly, that it is successful.
After we were put on the long-range plan with OKI, There were a lot of studies to be done, environmental, feasibility. You also had to take a look at alternatives.
This wasn't just a plop down an interchange and go. You had weaves, you had to work in 129 ramps into this, which was pretty integrated in reference to what ODOT wanted to see and what Federal Highway would approve. So that made it a little more challenging from a design standpoint than a typical interchange.
So when it came to the whole process, yes, there were setbacks periodically. When we were building Liberty Way interchange, we had to worry about the Indiana bat. I mean, the Indiana bat was one that they have a nesting, and if you have trees to be cut down, you cannot cut them down at certain times of the year. So you had to start planning some of your construction around this, and so that made life interesting.
The water tower issue was fairly unusual because the ground was still in the county commissioner's name, and the water tower was still in the county commissioner's name. To keep that inside a limited access highway was a little unusual, and that's what we had to build a bridge over the ramp. If you ever see under there's a bridge that accesses the water tower under the southbound ramp.
Liberty Township was an up-and-coming community, but it was a very well-kept secret. I'm not sure anyone that didn't live here knew where it was. So it was important that the 153,000 visitors that come down 75 every day saw that they were in Liberty Township.
Halfway through the process of putting together the Liberty Way interchange, we realized that Hamilton Mason Road was not going to get us the identity that we needed for our community at that point. ODOT had a rule in place whereby on the exit signs, you had the local municipalities. Townships were not permitted to have their names on the exit signs. So when we started thinking about this, we sat down and we go, okay, how do we go about getting our identity in that area?
The way that it came about was I literally made a phone call to our administrator at the time, Dina Manesi. I was on Hamilton Mason at the time, frustrated that we couldn't get our name on this exit because we knew how important it was to Liberty's future. And so I simply asked her, how hard is it to rename a street? And she said, it's fairly easy. You just get the trustees and the commissioners. We file the paperwork, you get the trustees and commissioners to approve it, and we rename the road. And she said, why? I said, I would like to rename Hamilton Mason to Farrell Way. After she got done laughing, I explained to her that I would like to look at renaming it to Liberty Township Way since they won't let us put the signs on. Caroline McKinney, our economic development director, and the staff talked about multiple names during the process. And Caroline was the one that made the decision to shorten it to Liberty Way. And we then coined the phrase, can't do it ODOT's way, we'll do it Liberty's way. All we wanted was a sign on the freeway to say Liberty Township next exit. By the time we got permission to rename the roads, all of the signs were already made and up. Even though the exit wasn't open yet, they were covered with burlap in preparation for the opening. So they had to go on and change every single one of those. In fact, if you look today, you're going to notice that every single Liberty Way sign is an overlay over the top. If you were to take those off, they will say Hamilton Mason underneath.
When we opened Liberty Way interchange, we were 6 months ahead of schedule and under budget.
We've had 8 million visitors a year come through the township. I'm not sure in the 200 years we've been in existence, we've had a total of 8 million visitors.
The Westchester Liberty region has recently passed Blue Ash as a #2 provider of jobs in Southwest Ohio, second only to downtown Cincinnati.
The ramp has surely changed the complexity of making this a viable development area.
If you look at the multiplier effect that Liberty Way is going to have, I mean, it's going to have a positive, a powerful, and a profound impact on Westchester for many decades to come.
Yamir Steiner, when building Liberty Center, basically said in no uncertain terms that without the zoning in place, without the vision that the staff and trustees at the time had, Liberty Center would have never happened in Liberty Township. Liberty Way has opened up Liberty Township's front door.